was all precipitated by Tracy. One morning, we had this great conversation about her process, hers and Lorna's kind of process in getting agents or getting offers accepted or putting the best foot forward. So I really thought it would be a great way to teach younger agents and give all of us some tricks and tips on how to set yourself up for success in writing offers. So we have Tiffany and Linda and Charlotte and Angela. All of you have encountered writing offers in this particular market, and so we'll start with Tiffany. Tiffany came a little preloaded, and just let's start with how do you prep your client for rating the best possible offer, because that's where it starts, right? It starts with getting buy-in from your client, so that your client understands the strategies behind writing offers.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's important to know, because I wouldn't have even thought to go that far back. But from the beginning of each conversation with the buyer, we're setting that expectation of, you've heard it's a crazy market, and it is. So we're going to take the time in a buyer consultation to go over what to expect in this market and how to be competitive in it. So from the onset, even with that initial call, they already know that they're going to need to be competitive, right? And whether they're ready to be so right off the bat or not, at least they are prepared from they have that expectation in place. So from that first call, we make sure that each buyer, of course, gets pre-approved. So we don't actually start working with them until they are pre-approved. So we have the initial call, chat a little bit about our process, chat a little bit about what they're looking to do, and I say, okay, next steps, I'm going to introduce you to a lender to get pre-approved, and I'll send you a recording of a buyer workshop that we recently posted, and that will teach you about the whole process. We go into a great lengths to go into detail about what that process looks like and how to be competitive in this market. So they say, okay, so those are their action items. So we send an email with all that information, and I tell them, after you've gotten pre-approved and watch that video about the buying process, then reach out to me and we'll schedule a consultation to answer any questions you have and talk about what's most important to you in your next home. So then they come back to us, and in that buyer consultation, they've already watched the video of what the process looks like. So we don't have to take that time to do it each time. This is something that has been born out of the pandemic, that we've been hosting more of these workshops so that we can just send the recording. And in the reporting itself, it teaches them, what the market looks like now, what has happened, what the pandemic market looks like. We talk about the numbers of the market as well, and then we dig deep into how to get pre-approved and tips and tricks to get your offer accepted. So then they come back to us having heard all of that already. It's probably an hour and 15 minutes long, but they can watch it on their time. They can go back and listen to things. So they're already preloaded with that information then. And then we have our buyer consultation, and we ask, do you have any questions? Usually they don't at that point, because we've already covered so much in detail in that recording. And then we dive into what they're looking for.
I love that.
Yeah, it's
because they're coming back with more educated. It's a more educated conversation at that point. You're not spending all that time doing the primer conversations, just about the concepts of buying a house. You're able to have a more meaningful conversation. when you get to that buyer's consultation.
Right, because otherwise it's a little too abstract too. And some of this is out of, we've said the same things over and over again, that we tend to paraphrase, as after we're tired of, having the same conversation about the process and how to be competitive in this market. We're not doing our client justice by paraphrasing, because it's all information that they really need to know. So I really push that. I strongly recommend that you watch this video, because we go much more into detail within this workshop than we could, one-on-one. And they say, okay, so I guess we should talk about what's in the actual workshop. What do you want to go to next?
Yeah, sure. What's in that?
So in the workshop, the first portion is going through the flow chart of, what the buying process looks like, and we walk them through it in that segment. The flow chart is the one that is in that buyer consultation package that he provides. So nothing that's rocket science. And then we segue into how's the market. So a lot of the graphics and graphs that we talk about are from the Keeping Current Matters segment that what do they call, Lab Coats Agents puts on each month. So I watch that each time right before our updated workshop, just to pull some slides, and those are our talking points. And then after that, then our lender partner, Andy Christenot, will talk about what they need to know about getting pre-approved, which documents they need to compile, what the differences are between the different banks, and do's and don'ts. And I think there's also like one slide as to rent versus buy that she also goes through. And then after that segment, then we turn to Rachel. So Rachel is my buyer specialist on my team, and she will go over what the market looks like with COVID now, what the best practices are, and tips and tricks for how to be competitive in this market. Making sure to behave yourself when you're walking through a home, because oftentimes there are cameras there, and the owners can hear and see you, but also like making a good first impression with the listing agent, or sometimes sellers if the seller's there too at the showings. So we encourage them, even if there's anything bad that you want to comment on, save those for after we're out of the house and just talking. So we're setting them up for avoiding those awkward circumstances where they fall in love with the property, but it really didn't look that way from the listing agent's point of view. What else did she talk about? I should probably pull that up so that, let's see.
You go through writing an offer and that kind of stuff in the video, also in the workshop video.
We talk about writing an offer in the flowchart part of it. But we do talk about how the market now, it's not uncommon for people to ask for all contingencies to be waived, first of all.
Right.
But also that, our job is to keep as many of those contingencies as we can for them, but give them the information if we found out that other people are waiving an appraisal or inspection or loan, whatever it may be.
So go over the idiosyncrasies of the particular market that we're in. She goes over in the workshop. Again, this is even before you have your buyer consultation. This is in the video they're watching, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So this is in the video. It goes. So the main point we want to relay to people is that we're here to give you the information that you need in order to make your decisions. We're here to protect you the best that we can, but we need to also give you the information to be successful. But ultimately, it's your property, and it's up to you how competitive you want to be and how much you like the property, right? So we stress that, we're not going to push you to do anything that you don't want to do for that property.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just a lot of, it's just making sure that that's clear right off the bat before they get into the stress of, I love this property and, I'm nervous, but I also may want to make some rash decisions. We just want to make sure that they have that foundation of understanding before they're in that stressful process.
No, fear lives in the not knowing, right? So, and even when not having done it before is stressful enough. So I can understand how all of this information helps. And then you have your buyer's consultation where you're answering higher level questions and moving more to specific, you move into more specifics about the process and them and how they fit into that. Is that what goes on in that buyer's consultation when you finally get to it?
Yeah, I think a lot of times they want to understand, okay, so in what capacity will we be working together, right? So that's what we're fleshing out then. And then it's really just analyzing or really fleshing out like what's important to them in their next home. We don't talk too much about the process anymore because we've already covered so much of it.
It's more about how do they fit into the process.
Yeah. How does this impact them? And
you go over their specific financial formula and how that is a plus or a minus and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So okay. Does anybody else have any additional kind of input to this point? Do you guys do anything differently in getting people to the buyer's consultation or them writing one offer? Is there anything you're doing with your buyers that will prepare them for that first offer? No? Okay. All right, so let's move on to the first.
Hold on. So writing a winning. Okay, so one of our slides that Rachel goes over is writing a winning offer. So she has make a good first impression, like we talked about, determine the seller's motivation. So talking to the listing agent to find out what the seller's situation is. Do they need more time in the house? Do they want less time? What are their hot buttons that will help us cater an offer to their needs and look most attractive to them. Shorten or waive contingencies we talked about, and offer a seller a lease back. So yeah, if they need more time.
Right, so this is starting the relationship side, the relationship conversation with your cooperating agent, right? And that is, that's a big part of what we talked about in a lot of our morning calls, was the importance of communication and the importance of relationship between agents, right? And that starts when you're gathering information, when you're asking for the viewing time, when you are, if you're alienating an agent, when you're asking for an appointment, that's a bad start, right? So you are relationship building for your client's advantage from the start. And if you are not the one calling, if you have an assistant who is calling for that appointment, you want to make sure that they're holding a standard of conduct that is in alignment with your client's needs, right?
Yep.
I think a lot of people lose that opportunity to start that relationship building early on in the process, and it's never too soon to start building it. right?
It's true.
Right. So let's all right, hold on a second. Okay. Let us start talking about what elements do you, what does that first call look like? What does that first call look like to the agent when you are, your client has seen the property and they're interested and you're doing information gathering? What does that look like?
I'll just call them. So I'll be like, hi, Angela. My clients saw your property. They really love it. It checks all the boxes that they've been looking for. And, you know, they're a young couple looking for their first home. And, you know, they're really excited about it. What do I need to know? So then, you know, they may tell me some things, and I'll ask them, okay, what is your seller looking for? I'll ask them, are they already moved out? Do they need more time in the property? Let's see. Where are they moving to? If we can find that out. Let's see, ask them, do you have an offer deadline? Oh, the offer deadline's a big thing. How are you handling offers? Right. So the thing is, if they say that they have an offer deadline, then the follow-up question is, are you absolutely waiting until that deadline before presenting offers? Or is there a chance that you might accept something before the deadline? And depending on that answer, that's what I will relay to my clients as to whether we should, you know, wait until the deadline to submit, or if we should try to send in a compelling offer before the deadline in hopes that it'll get accepted.
So what connotates, you know, I always find this interesting, what some agents think connotates a compelling offer. You know, when they ask that question and you're like, well, you know, if the offer is, you know, blows my client out of the water, I guess there's the possibility for them to accept an offer before the timeline's up, and then they write an offer that is, you know, like asking price, right? And you kind of, you know, you giggle a little bit at that. I think recently there was someone who did that, and they wrote it 10,000 under asking. So how do you have the conversation with your buyers to write that compelling offer? And what are the elements that you are looking for to make that offer a take it off the table offer? Because that's the only reason to write prior to the timelines, right? Is that if it's a take it off the offer, take it off the counter?
Not necessarily, because the thing is, if there's a possibility that they may accept something beforehand too, you also don't want to wait until the last day. Because so many times they say, okay, we're going to wait until the last day, and then you see that it's gone pending. So just I have to, you know, first have to flesh out like how certain are they that they're actually going to wait? You know, what's the number that your clients would like to see in order to be able to take it off the market. But I think there's an understanding that doesn't necessarily mean that the buyer is going to do that. The agents, you know, in representing the buyer, you're asking the questions you need in order to communicate that to your client, and then they decide what they want to do. Right? We may have had this conversation agent to agent, but the buyer doesn't feel comfortable with that because that's not the strategy they want to move forward with.
Absolutely.
Or maybe that's not the strategy I recommend to them. And then in which case, you know, we'll write it out. And I always ask them, do you want to try that strategy, or do you want to write it out and see where we go?
What are the elements that you believe are the most effective for a pre-timeline? Because my basic rule is, if somebody's telling me what they want, then I want to make sure I give them what they want, right? Terms, timelines,
Yeah.
things like that, right?
Right.
I find, me personally, I find that when you try to override or go outside the lines of that it does more harm more often than not.
Right.
And so, I always look to the agent for reasonable, reasonable kind of guidelines to making it work, because theoretically they want their client to get what they want. And so if they're telling me this is what their client wants, then we should be in alignment, right?
Yes.
What do you do about,
Well, I should say yes and no. Because the thing is, yes, if it is a multiple offer situation, but if it's going to be a multiple offer situation, but it has to also kind of make sense for the buyer, and you still have to do your homework and pull comps to make sure that the price can be supported, and give that information to your buyer as well, right? Like, just because the seller wants 2 million and the property is listed at 1.3 doesn't mean that they're going to get that. Doesn't mean that we can give them that.
yeah, and the clients, and so, your comps, how often does your comps support your clients going further than what they feel comfortable with, right? I mean, you're using the comps to both justify the offer and to show your clients a reasonable valuation for their money, right? That they're getting what the market values as, kind of in alignment. They're in alignment. But in this market, it's tough because it's oftentimes not in alignment. There's always a stretch, right? Everybody's stretching. So how does that conversation rectify?
Well, we talk about that in the workshop too, so that they're predisposed to that our comps are already stale by the time that we're using them to try to support a price. So after I pull comps, then I send them an email and say, these are the comps that seem most relevant to your property. This is the area. These are the boundaries that we set. We send a screenshot of the map that we've drawn on the MLS. And we say, based on comps and what we learned from the agent, I would imagine that, the property will probably sell within this range. And I always give a range because you don't know. And I give them a range and I say that, we can expect that it will probably be in this range, but if there's a buyer that's super motivated, it can definitely go beyond this. So what you need to decide is, what is that price that you're willing to lose the property over?
Right.
And know that if your offer is accepted, you probably are the one that was willing to move that needle as far as what the highest comp is for the area now.
Wants it more than everybody else, right?
Yeah. Not always, surprisingly, but usually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's move. If you guys have any questions, could you just write them in the chat bar and in the chat log, and I will I'll bring them out of that if you have any questions. So the next question is really moving into the elements of the offer. Like, what does that package look like? Every agent has a different way of putting the package together and presenting the offer to the selling agent. And I think it's important to look at them as it's a formal process of some sort. The worst thing I think you could do is just send a blind offer to an agent, right? I think that's probably the least effective way of getting that offer accepted, unless it's super out of the box, compelling offer, right? And even so, I wouldn't just email an agent an offer and say, please let me know when you get this. So what is that? What are the elements of the presentation that you send? What's all included in that?
Well, first you need to look on the MLS to see if the agent is asking for anything in particular, right? Because sometimes they'll specify, include the cover sheet and include all this information that is on the document on the MLS. You have to go and download that document and answer the questions on there. And some of them ask for FICO, some of them don't. So you have to check to see what the agent's looking for and follow their instructions, because they are probably testing you to some degree.
Yeah.
And then what we have as our staples are in one PDF. And everyone's a little bit different about how they like this, but what we've found is it's a little annoying to have to download multiple PDFs when someone sends an offer. So we default, if someone has not specified otherwise, to put everything in one PDF. So the PDF that we attach is the letter that the buyer wrote to introduce who they are. So that's the cover letter, who they are, what they like about the property, what this property is going to mean to them. And then the next page is the offer summary sheet that's on CAR, on zip forms. And then after that is the RPA in the zip forms, and then pre-approval letter, and then proof of funds. And proof of funds, we don't attach all of the different pages, just the summary page. Right, otherwise it's a massive document.
Okay. And do you do anything, the letter, do you write the letter, or you have them write the letter, or is it a group effort?
I usually have them write the letter.
No.
1 out of 10 times, maybe I write it if they don't, or I just write what I know about the buyers in the body of the email.
Got it.
Provide a letter.
And I guess a small rewind. What are you trying to achieve in your relationship with the listing agent before you send this off? Where do you like to, how far do you like to go before, or what do you like, what information, or what level of interaction do you like to have before you send that offer off? Do you have any?
Depends on who the agent is.
Yeah.
Well,
in a best case scenario.
In the best case scenario, we've developed a rapport of 2 people who know what they're doing, and will make each other's lives as easy as possible, is what we're trying to achieve in that relationship, but in that rapport building beforehand. Yeah, so I think that's the main thing, that communication is strong. There is that transparency and that mutual respect, and our clients are motivated. We're trying to relay that our clients are motivated and have been already educated as far as what this process is going to look like.
Right.
And if they said as is, and it was very clear that it's going to be as is, that we've already had that conversation with our clients and they have that understanding. We do have our lenders call the listing agent too. When there's a loan involved, we think that that's very important.
So the lender calls after you present the offer.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's great. And what is the purpose of that call?
so that the listing agent can ask any questions that they have about the buyer's financial abilities beforehand, and have that peace of mind to be able to relate to the seller, so that they can, and also so that they know that they have a direct line to the lender. I think it's, that there's so many people involved in each transaction, that the easier that it can be with people being able to communicate with each other, the better off we'd be, and the less stressful it'll be for the agents, for the sellers and the listing agent, right?
I think that's a great value add for a lender to be making that call, and I think that it goes a long way. I don't think enough people are doing that. Enough lenders are doing that for it not to be a disruptor, for them to not look at your buyer in some elevated way. Say, oh, Tiffany, it looks like Tiffany has it together and she can get it to the finish line. Oh, and she has a lender partner that can get it to the finish line. And that has to have some value in the equation if we're talking about a $5,000 to $10,000 variable, right?
Right. Well, it's just so that the listing agent can also speak to all these different elements about this offer, right? They have as much as they can possibly have to say to help us push the offer through as possible, and they don't have to wonder, like, obviously the lender is a huge part as to whether or not it'll go through. So if they feel good about the lender, then
it's a variable. Yeah.
What else do I need to say about that? Oh, and I include my whole team, including the TC and the lender on that offer email.
Wow.
So that
why do you do that?
Well, I write in the email just so that everyone's on the same page from the get-go, but also so that our partners, the lender and the TC, know what we have out there in the universe, so they can prepare mentally for a possible escrow coming through, so that no one's blindsided. I just want everyone to be prepared from the get-go. And lately we've had to pre-book our general inspector because they're so hard to.
That's another conversation altogether. Yeah. But it also, again, it has to instill some kind of confidence with the cooperating agent in your ability to get that offer to home plate, right? To get that deal closed. It cannot be stressed enough that the importance of relationship with the realtor community, or not relationship, but branding. How you are seen in the real estate community as a participant is of value to your clients. If they know who you are and how you do things and the integrity to which you run your business, they're going to be more apt to want to be in. You're more apt to receive that phone call saying, "Hey, Tiffany, we love your offer. And I really want to do a deal with you. If your clients can come up another $5,000, $10,000, then I'd rather do the deal with you. This is where we are." So, I mean, you're setting yourself up for that conversation over and over again in everything you're doing by showing the level of standard that you do business. To that, you're taking every opportunity to show the level of show the standard of your business to that cooperating broker. I think that's really an important message.
I think it's important to even say that to the agent too, and say that if we're close, can you please, give me a call and see if there's an opportunity for my client to meet what your clients are looking for too.
Absolutely.
And like, oh, you mentioned that, so I'm calling you. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, depending on if your client's ready to play ball or not. But it's good to have that opportunity.
Yeah. Anybody have any questions or little tricks that they do in their presentation that they like to share? No? No participation? Oh, Angela. Yes, come on, Angela, get in there. You have to get off of mute to do that. Maybe. You jump in whenever you take yourself off mute, Angela.
Yeah, you can type it.
Yeah, type it. Next, we'll go to the next state, which is when you get counter offered. Oh, she's right here. Come on. There you go. What's your question?
Because my audio isn't working. So you were saying, like, what is one extra thing that I do?
Yeah.
Okay, so one little tip I picked up, which I've been doing a lot lately, which seems to be going down well, is when I have everything saved in one PDF, just like Tiffany does, I save that to Drive. I guess you could save it anywhere. I get that link, I shorten it through Bitly, and I send that link by text to the listing agent.
Do a Bitly,
yeah,
and then send that link.
Yeah, so then what happens is the listing agent, often like you're checking your phone. When the link comes in, it actually shows the mini thing of the document, and you can click right there and see it. And then often they might not have responded so quickly to my email, but they see that and they'll click and go, oh, thanks so much. I definitely have your offer. It's great.
You text it to them.
Yeah, text it.
Oh, I like that. That's a good one.
And people really like that.
Yeah.
Respond to it well.
Yeah, especially people. Thank you, Angela. That was perfect. Yeah, no, especially people who are doing we're multiple offers, right? I mean, stuff slips through. Again, another layer of intentionality that shows the depth of your of your standard, right? Over and over again. I think it's one of the most important things, and really has gets the best response over time. Agreed. All right. All right. So let's move on to. So we've gotten our offer, not accepted, but we got a counter offer. What does that conversation with the client look like? What does that conversation with the representing agent look like?
So what we do first is forward that the counter offer to our clients via email. Obviously, remove the contact information from the listing agent, because we don't want them talking to the listing agent directly, because the listing agent will wonder why your client is.
Yeah.
So we forward that over, and then we pick up the phone to call the listing agent and ask them any questions that we have based on what we received. Just to clarify, this is a multiple offer, right? Or are we the only ones that you countered? Because that's kind of an anomaly nowadays too.
Hold on a second, Tiff. Hold on a second. Carly, can you mute Mark and Marcus? Can you mute everybody but Tiffany and myself? Thank you, I think, maybe. All right. And Mark also, please. It's got some background noise there. Okay. All right, Tiffany, sorry about that.
Okay. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. So just clarify to make sure you know whether it's a single counter offer or multiple counter offer. Look to see if there's a deadline for our response. Whether it's the standard 5 p.m. on the third day after receipt, or if it's been shortened. And then I would call the other agent to ask them, okay, are you going to wait until the deadline to pick an offer, or are you going to again, possibly respond and accept before that deadline. And they'll give you their version of that response. And that will dictate what you bring over to your client as well, as far as how quickly you should respond. And then I ask, can you share with me how many offers you received? Are any of them cash? Which contingencies, if any, have people waived? What else? What else do we ask? Is there anything, how did we, so we ask, even though we know it doesn't necessarily dictate how all the.
Where do we fit
pieces will
in?
fall, where did we land with our initial
Yeah.
offer in the range of what the initial offers look like? And they'll give some kind of indication. And I always ask, what do you think the property will sell for? But it's kind of, I ask that, but sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's not, because oftentimes we as listing agents also underestimate what something will sell for. So if you
Underestimate?
underestimate.
Right, unless the offers aren't as high as they want, then they overestimate, right?
So it's helpful to know, but sometimes it's not so helpful in the grand scheme of
Yeah.
things.
It's as good as the agent. It's as good as the integrity of the agent on the other side of the conversation.
Yeah, but I'm just trying to get like some sense.
Yeah.
And I tell my clients, like, this is what we learned. Doesn't necessarily mean that this is how it'll fall into place, but this is the information we're working off of. And again, what's your highest and best price for this property that you're willing to offer?
Yeah.
And then go from there.
And then what's the conversation with your client look like after that? Like, how are you setting them up according to where they are in the process, right? If it's their first offer or their 12th offer, I'm sure that the conversation is different and that their motivations evolve over the course of writing several offers, right?
It's very similar to what we did in the original part. We just relay exactly what we learned from the agent. So it's all bullet pointed what we were able to find out. Again, these are the comps. What price are you willing to lose it for? Let's chat with your lender to see what that breaks down to on a monthly payment wise, and what $10,000 more means, for example. And at the end of the day, we're like, look, we're here for you. Whatever you want to put forth as your best foot forward, we will support you.
Yep.
And then it's up to them. It's always up to them. We don't push our clients to do one thing or the other. They may ask our opinion, and if they ask for our opinion, then I will say, if this were my property, this is what I would offer given the situation. But I never say, like, this is what I recommend that you rent.
Yeah, no, and that's you're setting yourself up for disappointment, right? And it deteriorates the trust in the relationship, right? It's an opinion until it's proven otherwise. And I've lost on both sides of that equation in giving them too high and giving them too low. Thank you, Angela.
Hi, Angela.
Excellent.
Can I throw something, Joey? Can I throw something in here?
Absolutely.
It's interesting, Tiffany, that you go through this sort of what price do you want out of the gate, because the conversations that I tend to have with listing agents, I'd say 90% of them are, we're going to counter everybody that's at or over asking. And it's just a starting point. Do you feel there's actually a strategy to coming in that strong when you know you're just setting a benchmark and you're going to end up countering anyway?
So that depends. So we don't always go in strong in the beginning if the listing agent says that.
The first offer, for the first, initial offer.
We were only talking about that path. But yes, if they say we're going to counter everyone who comes in at asking or higher, then I tell my clients, let's just offer at asking or slightly higher than their ask. Yeah, you're right. Like if that's the situation, I don't tell them.
You never want to be on the initial round. You never want to be the highest offer. You never want to be the one pulling up the offers, right? Because you're just setting the baseline for your counter offer.
Right. And then no, that's my perspective on it. I kind of wasn't feeling that vibe. And then I thought, well, I wonder if you're hearing different things, because I mean, the conversations that I've had are, we're going to counter everybody that's, qualified, that is at asking or above. And then I have had the conversation and say, I know you have an offer deadline. Is there a number that will take this off the table? And I've been given that number. And then I go to my buyers and I say, this is what they said. And it's their decision whether they're going to do it or not. And I've pulled stuff off the table before the offer deadline that way as well. But that's like the 1% situation.
Right. And you have to have a buyer partner in that, and they need to feel comfortable with having maybe paid a little bit more than maybe what they would have paid, or right. You don't want them ever to come back to you at any given time and say, oh, I think I could have gotten this for 50 grand less. And
oh, absolutely.
That's upsetting.
No, that's, and you pull the comps and don't know if it's going to appraise, but this is the number they want. And, do what you will with the information, but
give them as educated a framework as possible. Yeah. Yeah. I think earlier, Charlotte, Tiffany we were talking about the second conversation is where she really, asked where do you think it's going? Right. In the first conversation with the agent, it's almost always aspirational, right? Because no one knows where it's going to go when you ask. So you have to keep that understanding when you're asking the agent, what do your clients want? They're always going to give you an aspirational number, always.
the other thing that I find offensive, and I don't know why, and I probably shouldn't, but as a listing agent, when you have an offer deadline, or you're telling people what it is, and then you get an offer in that has a deadline on it, it doesn't give you the 3 days. That's just like a bad taste. Like,
yeah, I would be offended by that. I agree. I like to, if you tell me that you like it a certain way, and you would like it a certain way, and this is the framework that you are asking for, and then you turn, and then the other person on the other side does the complete opposite, or just doesn't listen to what you're saying in any way, it doesn't take the lead on that you're giving them, then I find that to be that's a deal killer for me personally.
the other thing is the buyer's letters.
Yeah.
Is Tiff, you're still doing them, huh?
Yeah, Charlotte, everybody's still doing them. I mean, not everybody, but I haven't heard anyone really put up, even though we were told that it's unless the sellers are saying we are not accepting and reading any buyer's letters in their framework, right? Then I think almost everybody's still sending them.
Tiffany, are you asking anybody if they're accepting them, or you're just including them without asking the question?
I just include them without asking, because on the listing side, at least from my point of view, like I ask the sellers if they want to read them or not before I send them to them. So
even explain the liabilities involved in accepting those.
Well, it's not in the listing agreement now that it's a specific box to check if you actually want to see them. So it's strongly discouraged on the listing side. That's kind of why I was actually asking the questions rather than putting buyers through the agony of, writing it and then, and not getting read.
Right. I think the thing, I mean, some buyers are lucky and they get their offer accepted the first time around, but chances are they're going to be writing multiple offers anyway. So they might as well write that letter, because most people are still accepting them. I very rarely see that.
Rob put in the chat, the further you get to outside of Los Angeles, or the closer you get to Orange County, the more acceptable and the more prevalent the buyer's letter is.
Well, I think it only helps when I'm represented by, I think it only helps them. So I would rather just send them, and then the agent on the other side can decide what they're going to do.
Right. Again, and as long as it doesn't go against some direction that you've been given, right? We do not want them, don't send them. And then you send them, that, that doesn't help your cause. Follow the agent's directions. They've thought about it. They're telling, if they're thinking enough to lay it out, they have a preconception. There's something, whether you believe it's reasonable or not for them to accept or not accept, or to want things done in a specific way, it doesn't matter. Because they've thought about it. There's something about it that they feel is important enough to lay it out to you. And if you're going against that, then it causes some personal, they take it as a personal affront, right?
Say also, I'm not, regarding that deadline, expiration, I think it's more so that a buyer's agent is trying to see if they can get a response before more offers come in, but it's more a suggestion than it's actually expired, because if they want the property, they want the property. So when I'm on the listing side, I'm just like, okay, that's nice. Let me ask them, like, how hard set is this expiration? And if you need more time, they're gonna give you more time. So
yeah,
I'm offended by that. So yeah, I mean, I get why they're doing that, why they're putting a sooner expiration. Sometimes there's a real reason for that. That is based on what's going on in their lives that they need to know by then. Sometimes it's more of a tactic. So.
And so, yeah, I have a question that I think that everybody wants to hear the answer to, or I want to know the answer to that. And that's, we're espousing the importance of relationship with the cooperating broker or agent as early as possible. Does anyone have any tips and tricks on communicating with an agent who is not wanting to be communicated with? So you have these agents who don't want to have a lot of conversations. They don't want to give you any insight. Sometimes they don't want to answer your phone calls. Does anybody have any, Tiffany, I'll ask you, do you have any tips and tricks, or anyone else have any tips and tricks in breaking through that wall? Have you ever encountered that?
I don't want to a lot of the times. So it's just, I think if you just respectfully, try to text them if they're not calling you back, and just say, hey, look, I'm sure you're bombarded by calls. I hate to bother you. Would you mind telling me if blah, 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 like any insight that you can provide would be great.
Yeah.
Just be gracious about it and just acknowledge that, they're busy. Everyone is kind of around. It's not, it's not unheard of. So just acknowledging that to kind of bring their balls down, I think is helpful. And it works sometimes it doesn't. So you just,
I mean, some agents, that's their strategy, you know what I mean, is to not respond, right? Just send me an offer, right? Or they're trying to create a space where they can accept their own offer, especially when you get outside of Los Angeles. It gets a little Wild West and agents don't respond in hopes that they'll just respond to end users, right, who are calling to inquire about the property. Anyone else have any tips and tricks on establishing relationships with agents who don't want to have a relation, don't want any new friends? I have to ask because, you know, I need the tool myself. Other than being gracious, which I think is what I try to do, and, you know, come at it from a bunch of different angles. If I email, call, text, you know, yeah, one of those three, right, have to, they have to be seeing at least one of those three.
I don't think I have anything else.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else. All right, and then
Them on Facebook or Instagram and message them on.
yeah, go for it. Exactly, every angle possible. What is and so that, you know, what is your you know, that kind of takes us through the offer writing process. Anybody else have any tips or tricks or questions that we can talk about before we disband? Any questions about the process or any situations that they've had a hard time cracking? No one. Any recent phenomena that they'd like to share?
My clients are going to be closing escrow on a property that they were not the highest because of the letter.
Because of what?
Because of the letter that they sent, and the sellers really liked them and felt good about them.
What was the anomaly in price?
Let me see. $40,000.
40,000. You got a 40,000 less than the highest offer based on the letter. Wow, that's amazing. Congrats.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all the buyer, but
What's
they
that?
just happened to have a very compelling letter that I
Yeah.
have not read. Apparently, it's very compelling.
You haven't read the letter? I would be using that.
You better read that letter.
Yeah, I would definitely. Let's publish it.
Honestly, it has to. You have to know about who the
Who
seller
the
is.
listener is, who the reader is. Yeah.
You have to
Yeah.
tailor it to that person.
It becomes really idiosyncratic. I want a family. I want somebody to carry on, oh, it's like, oh, well, I raised 2 kids here. Oh, we have 2 kids and a dog. Oh yeah, it sounds just like us when we were younger. People project their own stories. And so as the closer it is to their own story, that's really great. And I guess going back to that initial conversation with the listing agent, and trying to find out what, where are they going, what does the seller want, and try to maybe pick up a little personal insight into the seller could be a real advantage if you can get into the seller's mindset prior to writing that letter, right?
Yeah. And just going back to your relationship with these agents and how easy you are to work with, that's huge in this industry.
Yeah, I agree.
First of all, for this deal, the listing agent is from Orange County, lives there, and the sellers are out of state in Oregon, so they don't have the time to deal with nonsense. So if you can be easy to work with and your clients seem like they'd be easy to work with, then that does carry some weight.
Yeah, I have to believe that $40,000 is I'll project onto you, just knowing you, that it's a combination of everything you do. That the letter was just that cherry on top that sent it all home, right? Oh, she seems like a really great agent. I talked to their lender. They wrote the great letter. I mean, it's all of those pieces. The letter, I'm sure, was if nothing else, was compelling enough for the seller to take all of those other elements into consideration, right? Which I think is that's where the magic comes in. That's great. Any other questions before we jump off? Any other questions that you guys might have? Any other insights? Share or inquire? All right, guys. Then Tiffany, thank you so much. And thank you guys for coming in and spending time with us. We'll post this on our YouTube channel. Thanks, Tiffany.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Have
Bye.
a good afternoon. Thanks, guys.